time for us to begin. So, the first time you're putting a little tiny pixel of light onto your DIY gamer screen. This is a magical moment, so you need to prepare yourself. The way that you start writing any kind of code on the Arduino is you take, you've already seen the block comment that we've just created, we're leaving that inside the sketch. You then have to always start with something called void setup. This is a setup function, which always has to have the words void space setup, open and close parentheses, followed by a curly bracket open and a curly bracket close. And then you do the same thing, but with loop. Now, I'm a big fan of putting those in at the very beginning before I do anything else, because that way, because I know for a fact that I'll need them both. So why mess around? Just put it in there. So we have the void setup and the void loop. The setup function happens once. It happens as soon as you give power to the Arduino. So this happens once, happens at the start. I'm writing myself a note in the single comment method, so you can always remember whenever you're reading this, okay, the setup happens only once when it starts up. And then the loop is cool. The loop happens forever. Happens infinitely. Well, infinitely as long as there's power. Going to the DIY gamer. So, right, so now that we've created our setup and our loop functions, which are just sort of empty shells right now, we need to actually bring something into the sketch that allows us to talk directly to the gamer. So what we've done is we've collected all the really complicated functions and ways to do things on the gamer. We've collected them into a little library which we call the gamer library. Now, for instructions on how to download the gamer library and install it, you can find that all on our resources page. I'm going to assume that for this video that you've already downloaded and installed the library. But now, once it's installed, how do we actually import it into our sketch? We make sure that the sketch is using the library. Okay, so in order to import the library, I have to click on Sketch. I then say Import Library. And if you have installed it correctly, you'll see at the very bottom it says Contributed Libraries, and the Gamer library should be there. So I click on Gamer. Whoopsie, I missed that. I click on Gamer. What it does is it adds this line of text at the top of the file, the top of the sketch, called include the gamer.h file. Okay? And what that means to our piece of code is, before it does anything else, it must look at the gamer library and import all of those wonderful functions that have been created especially for you. If you'd like to know what those functions are, I advise you to have a look at the DIY Gamer cheat sheet, which is also downloadable from our resources page. It has all the different functions that you need written up for you, so that you know exactly how to what they're called in order to use them inside of the sketches that you write. So, we now imported the gamer library. The next thing we need to do is we have to create what's called a gamer object, right? And a gamer object is basically a way for us to call the gamer and the gamer library functions. And the way we do that is we say gamer. I know that's confusing, but the capital G for gamer is of course the same as the included gamer library with a capital G. So we're saying, hey gamer library, I want to create a new object that contains all of your functions, and I'm going to call that the gamer. So create a new gamer object. Just made myself some comment to remember why I'm doing this. The next thing in my setup, what I need to do is I need to tell the gamer to begin. It needs to start doing all the things that it's supposed to do in order to handle the screen, handle the buttons, handle the sensors, etc. The next thing I want to do in my loop, because of course this is what's going to happen all the time, is I want to draw something. And in order to draw something, I basically have to tell the display to turn a pixel on the display. Now if you look at the display is made up of 8 rows and 8 columns. It's an 8 by 8 LED matrix. That's what we do. That's how we talk about these things. They're 8 by 8 matrices. Now we're going to do something which involves talking to an array. I'm going to explain the array in a minute, but first I want to show you what it does. So I'm going to say gamer.display. That makes sense. I want to display something on the gamer. And then what I have to do is give it an X and then a Y reference. So if we remember all those images that we were busy sort of coloring in to create the image of our little spaceship, the X would be the position along the horizontal, and the Y would be the position along the vertical. That top left position is the very first one. So in the world of arrays, we consider that 0, 0. X position is 0, Y position is 0. I'll explain that to you in just a moment, but first I want you to see how that looks in code. The game display 0, 0 is equal to 1. So if I upload that, which I'm about to do, you will see hopefully that top left hand corner is going to turn on. Okay, so if I click on, in order to upload it, I need to make sure that the Arduino is talking to the computer in the right way so that our gamer can be updated. And the way we do that is we click on Tools, Serial Port, and you look for, on a Mac, you look for anything called USB modem, blah, 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 blah. And we can see them over here on the bottom. On a PC, it looks slightly different. It'll be COM3 or 4 or 5 or whatever it is. If you're not too sure which COM port it is or which one of these strange names could be your Arduino, what you need to do is unplug it for a second, click on Tools, Serial Port. Ah, you see? They're gone now. So I know for sure that the ones that I had in there, the USB modem ones, were in fact the Arduino. There it is, the USB modem. Okay, so I've selected the right one. I also have to make sure that the board is correct. So it's an Arduino Uno because I checked on the actual Arduino, it says Uno. Okay, so it's that particular version of the board. The way we do that is like this, gamer.update display. That's clever, makes total sense. And it's a function, so we have to have the parentheses. Now if I upload that, compile it first, converts it into a language that the Arduino understands, and then sends it along the USB, and boom, look at that, our first pixel on the screen. Yes, yes, I can hear it, all the applause and excitement coming from you guys, my audience. Thank you so much. It's amazing, we have a light on the screen. But seriously, why do we have a light on the screen when I've said I wanted to go to the 0x and 0y position? That is very confusing. So what I'm going to do now is explain to you by actually drawing it in code how the grid is working and how an array works, okay? So I happen to have already sort of written up what the array looks like in terms of the grid looks like. And I'm going to copy it, I'm going to get rid of my big block quote here, block comment here, and replace it with this wonderful grid that I've drawn, okay? So as you can see on this grid, you can see the X position going across in the horizontal. So this is X0, then X1, then X2, then X3, then X4, then X5, X6, and X7. And then going down the vertical, we have Y0, Y1, Y2, Y3, Y5, Y5, Y6, and Y7. So what's weird and what's kind of a bit confusing is in the world of programming, the first position in a matrix or in an array is the 0th position, okay? I know it's a bit confusing, but it is in fact the very beginning of the array that is considered the first. So even if it's the 0th position, it's still considered that first position, okay? But that means if there's only 8 pixels across, the 0th position will be the first one, and what will be the 8th one? It won't actually be 8, it'll be 7, because 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See that? Even though I said 7, we're talking about 8 positions. Very confusing. If your brain exploded, that's okay. Just pick up all the pieces, shove them back in, and we can continue. So in order to turn on the top left-hand LED, we are looking for the 0x position and the 0y position. Now what happens if we want to turn on the sort of middle-ish LEDs? Well, if I look at my little array over here, I'm going to choose, say, the x equals 3 position and the y equals 3 position. I'm going to turn that into 1. And I'm going to do the same thing with x equals 4 and y equals 3. So on my code, and I'll also turn off my top left-hand corner. So now that I've drawn the ones into my actual image matrix on the code, or in the block comment, I'm now going to do that actually in the loop. So in my display, I want to turn on x position 3 and y position 3. So there I do that. And then I'm going to copy and paste that, so I have 2 of them. And I'm going to turn on x position 4 and y position 3. So it's the same line, the same vertical line, but one over to the right. So X position is 4 and Y position is 3. And when I upload that, let's see what happens. We expect 2 dots to be on somewhere in the middle. Look at that. It works. It does what we ask it to. I'm so thrilled. I hope you are too. So we now have 2 pixels on our gamer. But what do we do with those 2 pixels? Maybe we want to move the pixels along the screen. Maybe actually, considering this is actually all about building the little spaceship in our Dodge game, maybe we want to convert that into a spaceship. So the only pixel missing from our little spaceship is the pixel above the little line, right? So it'll be the sort of just above the leftmost pixel of the line. We want to have another pixel. So on my little code array over here in my block comment, I am going to add another one, and that position there is x equals 3 and y is equal to 2. Okay, so x equals 3, so I'm going to add another pixel by copying and pasting because I'm just lazy. X is equal to 3, yes, we're happy with that, and y is equal to 2. So now when I upload that, hopefully we will see our little spaceship beautifully rendered on the screen. Look at that! Genius! That's our little spaceship. Now we want to see our spaceship moving around, of course, right? So the next stage here, of course, is to move the spaceship.